All right, so I'm going to be doing my micro teach for my ESL lesson plan, and I have Elise over here, but you can't see her, and she's gonna be my student. So the lesson plan that I designed was about holiday traditions. So this lesson plan is designed for students in my classroom to learn all about holiday traditions around the world. With many different students that will be in my classroom someday, it's important for all of my students to feel comfortable and welcome within the classroom. One way I'm able to do this is by making sure all of the students in my classroom are culturally aware of different holiday traditions throughout the world. Many different learning styles will be represented within this lesson. There will be verbal communication, listening skills, hands-on activities, and writing. At the end of the lesson, there's partner work. By having partner work, it allows my English language learners to work with their peers who natively speak English. None of the partner work is anything that any of my students couldn't handle. The partner work is designed for my ELL students to use social language rather than academic language. This lesson is also designed to be fun while learning a subject that needs to have certain standards accomplished. The time allotted for my lesson plan would be 45 minutes, but we only have to do 15 minutes for this lesson plan, so I'm going to do as much as I can without trying to go over the time. All of my ESOL standards are in my lesson plan that I've previously uploaded online, as well as my objectives. So the first thing that I'm going to do is play the song "When Christmas Comes to Town" by the Polar Express. So let me get that pulled up here. Oops. It's not wanting to log in. Okay. So we're gonna play this video.
I'm wishing on a star and trying to believe that even though it's far, you'll find me Christmas Eve. I guess that Santa's busy, 'cause he's never come around. I think of him when Christmas comes to town. The best time of the year, when everyone comes home with all this Christmas cheer. It's hard to be alone, putting up the Christmas tree with friends who come around. It's so much fun when Christmas comes to town. Presents for the children, wrapped in red and green. All the things I've heard about, but never really seen. No one will be sleeping on the night of Christmas Eve, hoping Santa's on his way. When Santa's sleigh bells ring, I listen all around. The herald angels sing, I never hear a sound. And all the dreams of children once lost will all be found. That's all I want when Christmas comes to town. That's all I want when Christmas comes to town.
Okay. So next, Elise, I want you to tell me some of the Christmas songs that you like to listen to around Christmas time, around the holidays.
I like to listen to Jingle Bells. I like Joy to the World. I like Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. And I like Oh Holy Night.
And you said "Oh Holy Night," right?
Yes.
Okay, why do you like these songs?
I like Joy to the World and Oh Holy Night because it reminds me of the true meaning of Christmas, which means a lot to me. And then I like Jingle Bells and Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree just because they're fun Christmas songs that you can dance to.
Cool. So if I was in a real classroom, I would ask my whole entire class, and hopefully there would be different ethnicities from around the world, so they could put their holiday songs that they like as well. So yeah. Now I'm going to read this book, The Polar Express, because we just listened to the book or the song When Christmas Comes to Town by from the Polar Express movie. So, The Polar Express. Hopefully, you'll be able to see me. Can you see me? Okay. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never heard, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaky metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the door of one of the open cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nugget centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills turned to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren of desert ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is a North Pole. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves! Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl, so crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me and said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, now, what would you like for Christmas? I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out the first gift of Christmas. A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa held the bell to me and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeer's names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. What? I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Merry Christmas, he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from the whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box from behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was the note. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she no longer could hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. The end. So, now we're going to do a graphic organizer of different holiday traditions that people have with their families. So, one holiday tradition that I do with my family is that all my family comes over to my house and we eat food. So, I can put food in one of my graphic organizers. At least what's one thing that your family does, or several things that your family does for the holidays?
We always travel to my grandparents in South Dakota. What else? We have all of our cousins come over on Christmas Eve, and we have a big meal with them. One thing my parents have always done is that all of us kids get to open one gift on Christmas Eve, but we open our stockings and the rest of the gifts on Christmas. Another thing is that we always have breakfast on Christmas morning, and during breakfast we open little British poppers, the little gifts like a crown, and a little piece of British candy. Another thing we do is that our family always goes to church on Christmas Eve.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to think of some that I do with my family. We like to bake. My family and we like to bake different Christmas goodies. And then what's another thing that you guys do that you haven't listed?
One thing we always do, we always are with family on Christmas Day.
Okay, sweet. So this is a graphic organizer, and in the middle of it I had holiday traditions, and Elise and I filled it out, and I would have my students in the classroom fill out the graphic organizer with my assistants if we were in the classroom. And then another thing I would do in the classroom that we cannot do unfortunately here is I would make an aisle, and I would have two sides of my classroom have desks on it and have my students and have the aisle like this, and we'd set it up just like the Polar Express Christmas car train, and then we would go through different Christmas and holiday traditions. Elise and I, we both share Christmas as our as a holiday that we celebrate, but my hope is with this activity that the students in my classroom some of them would celebrate a different holiday. So then I would go ahead and have my students draw a picture and then write down the holiday that they do. Maybe one of my students does Hanukkah, maybe one of them does Kwanzaa. So I'd have them write on their piece of paper Hanukkah and then the date that they celebrated on or dates that they celebrated, and then draw a picture of them with their family doing that. And then once my students have written a picture or have written and then drawn a picture, I would complete a Venn diagram with the class together of the similarities and the differences of the similarities and differences between the holiday traditions. So unfortunately, I can't really do a lot of that with just two people, but that was just a little bit of a sample of my lesson. So I'd love to do this in a classroom someday. I think it's really important to be culturally aware of different holidays because there's a lot of really neat things. Like there's a lot of people do presents differently. Some people don't do presents. There's different food. People hang out with their families in a different way. So I think it's just really important. And then this lesson, I believe, was designed for a third grade classroom. No, it was designed for first grade, pardon me. And I think that this would just be a fun lesson, and that would get the kids really excited about Christmas or about the holidays in general. So thank you for watching.